My name is Guadalupe Garcia McCall, and I am the author of Summer of the Mariposas. I thought I'd start with a little bit about myself. I am a full-time teacher. I have been a teacher for 26 years. I used to teach 8th grade English and for 24 years, and now I teach at the high school. I'm teaching English 2 at the high school level. It's interesting is that because I was a teacher, I started doing a lot of writing with my students, and that's how I started becoming an author. I'm also the author of Under the Mesquite. This came out in 2011. It was my first book. It got quite a number of awards, but the Putable Prey was one of them. My second book is called Summer of the Mariposas, and that's the one that we're going to talk a lot about today because it was on the Spirit of Texas Award. Summer of the Mariposas came about because of something that happened in my classroom. I used to teach the Odyssey in 8th grade, and one of the things that happened one year in, I think it was 2011 when it happened, was my girls were not happy with the Odyssey. They didn't want to read it. They were very, very tired of it. And so when I started questioning them and we were having a discussion, I asked them, well, why don't you like it? And they said, we don't like it because it's all about guys. Guys going on adventures, guys killing monsters, guys having all this fun, and the women don't do anything. They're just wives and mothers who stay home. And one particular girl said, yeah, miss, I don't like Penelope. I don't like the way she's handling this. And I said, well, what's wrong with Penelope? She said, and she grabbed the book. She goes, let's face it, miss, the guy leaves, Odysseus leaves, and he's gone for 20 years. 20 years, miss. And what is she doing? Weaving. I'm not weaving for some guy for 20 years, no matter how cute he is. And she put the book down. Well, we all had a good laugh about it. But then I started we started talking about the fact that it was that kind of society, that it was a society that where men had all the power. They made the rules, they enforced the rules, and women didn't really have much choice in the matter. And so as they were leaving my classroom, this little girl was talking to her friend, and she says, it's not fair. We need our own Odyssey. And it was like the light bulb came on. I thought, oh my God, that is exactly what's going on. My girls, my Hispanic girls, because I teach in a school where 98% of us are Hispanic, they don't see themselves reflected in the literature. They're not seeing Hispanic girls being like heroines. And so they're not seeing that. And they were hungry for that. That's what they really wanted. That's what that discussion was really about that day. And so I went home, and as I was driving home, I was thinking, I can do this. I can rewrite the Odyssey with girls. Why not? I can make it something that my girls would like to read. And so there I went. I went off on my tangent, and I took my sticky notes out, and I started looking at the structure of the Odyssey, which follows the hero's journey. Now, most of the time, the hero's journey, and I have a little copy of it here. The hero's journey follows the hero as he becomes a hero. So he has to leave home, he has to defeat monsters, he has to atone with the father, defeat everything that comes in his way, and come to terms with who he is, what his flaws are, and how he is part of his own problem, and so that he may be able to return home. So I thought, I'm just going to take every one of these markers which are in the hero's journey, like the call to adventure or refusal of the call, meeting the mentor, and the trials and tribulations, and I'm just going to turn it into the Odyssey for girls. And so that's what I did. And I was very fortunate because I have 5 sisters, and I thought, I already have the girls. I'm just going to make them sisters, and I'm going to use my sisters as inspiration, because when we were little, we got in some trouble ourselves too. We were not as good as we should have been all the time, even though we were pretty good. So I named the main character Odilia, like Odysseus, and these are her sisters, the twins, and Juanita and Pita. Pita is the baby, and she's adorable. But I wanted them to have the call to adventure, so I thought, I've got to find something that sets them on that adventure. And I remembered this incident that happened when I was about 21 years old, where we found we saw a dead body in the river. And I thought, what if the girls had found that? What if they had pulled it out brought it out and said, let's find out who he is. Well, that's exactly what I had him do. They find out that in his boot there's an ID and that he is from El Sacrificio. El Sacrificio is a town, a very, very small town in Mexico and in Coahuila. And so what they do is that they think, oh my God, this is where Dad's from. Grandma still lives there. Maybe if we go over there, we can find out what happened to Dad, because you see, their father has been gone for a year. And the reason the girls were even in the pool that day, in their little swimming hole along the bank of the river, is because their mom has 2 jobs and she can't take care of them all the time. She can't watch them all the time. And so that becomes the impetus for them to go on this journey and to search for information about their father. Well, in the search, they come to terms, just like Odysseus did, with what their faults are. And they meet the monsters that they have to defeat, and they come full circle. One of the loveliest things that I loved doing was getting our mythology in there. So when they meet the monsters, when they have to go through the trial, the road of trials, I thought, what could replace the Cyrus and Charybdis and Cyclops? And so instead of Cyclops, I put Chupacabras, but he's blind on one eye, so he only has one eye. Instead of the sirens who are, trying to eat them, I put a coven of lechuzas, so 13 lechuzas. Those are owls, but they're not really owls, they're witches. And so they're very vicious owls. And they speak, and they're not nice. And then instead of Charybdis, I had a Nahual. And the Nahual is a shapeshifter, a warlock who tries to boil them in his cauldron. I hope I'm not giving too much away. But those are some of the trials that they have to go through, some of the monsters they had to defeat. And those are all monsters that my students might know because, we live in this area in South Texas and most of us are Hispanic and most of us understand the legends and we've heard them all our lives. But I thought it would be interesting to have the rest of America introduced to our legends and our monsters. I also put some deities in there. I put some Aztec goddesses, Tonantzin, and La Chalupa, and things like that. So a lot of icons from Mexican culture. Another thing I wanted to do, other than follow the hero's journey, is I wanted to have the icons that were more of archetypes. And that's when I came up the idea of using the game of Loteria, the cards that are in the Mexican bingo game that we play. It's kind of like bingo, but it has little cards, and we have a saying or a calling with every card, and then people put their little beans wherever, or their pennies, or their dimes or nickels, whatever they have, and they put them in the deck, in the card that they have. So they have a card with 16 cards on it, but then the caller is calling the cards. And some of these are very iconic archetypes in Mexico. So this is El Músico. Then we have La Estrella. We have El Alacrán. And these are just a few of them. There are 54 cards altogether. La Araña, one of my favorites. La Chalupa. La Rosa. La Dama, El Diablito. Now understand these are like blown up cards. The normal ones, when the caller's calling them, are about this size. And then the tabla, which is your card that you put your pennies or beans or whatever it is you're going to put, it has 16 of these. These are really important, I thought, in not just representing our culture and showing something fun that we do, but also representing the fact that even our culture has archetypes that are very much connected to the rest of the world. If you look at other cultures, almost every culture has something like this. The demon, the creature that comes from the darker side, that thing that is representing evil. Almost every culture has what they consider the dama, the lady, the person that is like the goddess, the good person in the story. Almost everybody recognizes the symbol of beauty. Flowers as the symbol of femininity and beauty. One of my favorites, La Araña. La Araña is poisonous. So one of the things I did is all of these, like I said, have sayings. Well, the sayings were copyrighted, and so I couldn't use them without asking permission, and it would have taken me quite a bit of effort. And I thought, I think I'd rather come up with my own sayings, because when the father plays used to play the cards with them, he used to have his own sayings. So I created the sayings. So every chapter in the book starts off with one of those cards. So if you look at the chapters, there are 22 chapters, and every one of them starts with one of these different cards. So I picked the 22 that applied to that particular chapter. The one that I wanted to share with you today was, of course, La Araña. It's one of my favorites, and so I thought I'd read it to you, all right? It says, Una araña entre más hermosa, más ponzoñosa. And then there's this translation, the spider. The prettier the spider, the more poisonous it is. Now, I want you to think about that. Think about, what does that mean? What does that mean about humans? If a spider, the prettier it is, the more poisonous it is, what is it telling us? And what archetype are we trying to, is that talking about? Also, what does it mean in the story? And what does it mean beyond the story? What does it mean in the big picture, in the world around us? So that's why I used the cards as archetypes. I wanted to showcase them. I wanted to make that connection between cultures, between my culture, our culture, and other people's cultures who are reading the book. The músico is one of my favorites. He's recognized in almost every culture. If you think about even Greek mythology, Orpheus, the greatest musician of them all. We idolize, even in modern society, we idolize musicians. La Estrella, we all understand that there is a guiding light. There is something that calls us to adventure, that lights our way. So these are the icons that are very much archetypes in the book. So talking about symbolism and archetypes, I wanted to call attention to the title. The title is Summer of the Mariposas. And if you look closely, there is an Aztec hieroglyph of a butterfly, which is what a mariposa is. And if you open the book, the first thing you see before you even start reading is that there's an explanation about butterfly. It talks about a butterfly, what it is, that it's an insect and has wings. But it also says that the Aztecs held the butterfly in very high regard because they believed that the butterfly was the souls of their loved ones. The women, the children, their fallen warriors, and their ancestors returning home, transformed to assure them that they were well and that life, however brief, was beautiful. And so they even had a festival to welcome the monarch butterfly who traveled all the way from Canada, and it took him 8 months to get down all the way to Mexico. But when the butterflies arrived after that voyage, the Aztecs dropped everything and sat around and talking to them and playing with them and welcoming them because they were there, the spirits and the souls of their loved ones. And so this book is very much about the Odyssey, the transformation, and the journey home. So that is what the book is all about. Now, a little bit about my writing process, because I always get asked that question: how do you write, when do you write, and how do you do it? Well, one of the things I do is I always keep journals around the house. I might have little ones that I carry in my purse. As you can see, I put little notes on these. I might have a nice one that I take outside, or like when I'm out here because I really love writing longhand. It's one of my favorite things. But I always keep a pen in there and I just write. And this one's empty. I'm about to start using it to write my 4th novel. I'm really excited about that. So I keep something like that. When I can't find anything else, my best resort right here. A composition notebook. I do a lot of notes like that. A lot of little things that I just want to remember. I do charts, graphs, little sticky notes that are things that I'm working on that are trying to figure out in my head. I do plan. A lot of people, I do write freehand on the spot, but I do plan my novels. A lot of authors will tell you that they love to just sit down and just write out of creativity, and that's wonderful. That's not the way I work. I'm not a pantser. I'm a planner. I have to know what is going to happen in the story. So before I really sit down at the computer, after I've done a lot of free writing and a lot of creativity has gone into thinking about my story, thinking about my characters, then I do have a method. I use the regular method that everybody seems to love. The exposition, rising action, climax, and resolution. I actually use a lot of color coding. I put these up on a big poster that I have on my wall in my bedroom and next to my desk. And I just do little notes to myself. What's going to happen here when I introduce my characters, my setting, and my conflict? What's going to happen? How is that conflict going to grow? How is it going to get bigger? Where is it going to climax? Where is it going to come to a head where it explodes and things go crazy? And how is that going to lead into the falling action and the resolution? So I do use a lot of sticky notes, and I do use a lot of planning. Once I have my plan, then I'm good to go, and I know I can just sit down and write my story. And that's the easy part, writing the story. Well, thank you very much. I wanted to thank the committee for putting Summer of the Mariposas on the spot, which is the Spirit of Texas Award. Thank you so much. I feel very, very blessed.